This thing that happened in Wisconsin, a small Wisconsin town, is still reeling from Sunday's shooting spree that left 6 innocent people dead.
Young people compounding the tragedy. The fact that the gunman who also died was no stranger to local law enforcement. In fact, he was actually one of their own. Watch.
No one in Crandon, Wisconsin will ever forget October 7th.
You always see it on the news, but it's always happening someplace else, not in Crandon.
It was a day of terrible tragedy and tears.
Devastated, pretty much.
The town was torn apart by the slaughter of 6 young people at a movie and pizza party early Sunday morning. All of the killings carried out, cops say, by someone people would least suspect. 20-year-old Deputy Sheriff Tyler Peterson.
There's never any way that you can expect something like this to happen, but especially from him. He's just really normal, average.
He was a nice kid. I just talked to him 2 days ago. Very, very nice kid. He just must have snapped.
So what triggered Peterson's rampage? Was this young cop a ticking time bomb and no one knew it? John Denny, the Crandon chief of police, told reporters Monday afternoon there had been no psychological evaluation done on Peterson because it is not required in Wisconsin.
There was not a psychological evaluation done. I think it's important that you realize that we had no indications, obviously, that anything like this would ever occur.
Joining us this morning is criminal profiler Pat Brown and former NYPD officer Pat Brosnan to talk a little bit more about this. Pat, I want to start with you because a lot of folks are saying, whoa, no psychological profile, but that's not necessarily unusual in small towns?
Actually fairly common, Juliet, in small towns for 2 reasons. First of all, it's not mandated by the towns because they're not governed by civil service law, say, for instance, like Chicago, New York, and L.A. And second is a fiscal concern. There's costs to bring in psychological examiners to administer the exams, to analyze the results.
So he was a deputy sheriff, but also the local cop as well. At 20?
Yes.
At 20? That seems very young to me.
Not that unusual, actually. In New York, it's 21, but 15 years ago in New York, it was 19.
Was it?
So it's really not that unusual. I mean, you could be in the front line in Iraq at 18 and not have a beer for 36 months, so it's all relative.
Yeah, that's so true.
know?
Are you surprised, Pat Brown, that he would go in? He apparently had some problem with his ex-girlfriend who was at this party, and the rest of the people there shunned him when he wanted to get into the party.
Right.
Is it surprising that he didn't just go in and maybe attack her? He just shot everybody in his sight.
Well, actually, it's not a surprise, Mike, because the point for a mass murderer is not just to kill off one person, because that doesn't show you enough rage. It doesn't say, look, I got you and I got everybody. And besides, the people that were with her, he considered his enemies as well because they were on her side. They're partying with her and he's not.
And actually, some of these people, reports are that 2 of these people were very close friends of his.
Right, well, they were.
Did that even, well, yeah, exactly, but that even enrages him more because of the fact that he's jealous about her and these people are with her.
Absolutely, because he wants to be the important one. This is a person who everything's going to center on him. And if you're not paying attention to him and you're not on his side, then you're simply against him. So you're just, you're going to be in the line of fire. If you're anywhere near his #1 target, he's going to take you down.
We always use that term, ticking time bomb. Do you use that term, and is that something... Well, answer that question, then I got a backup for you.
Right, it's a good one. A ticking time bomb in the sense that a person like this who's got like a borderline personality disorder / heading towards psychopathy, they've got enough defects in their being, in their whole personality. In other words, their whole life is not going well, and their way of dealing with the world is suffering, and he's frustrated and angry. So eventually, he might go over that.
But we always wonder, could we have known he was about to explode? Are there warning signs that we all should look for with our family and friends?
Well, there are warning signs that you have these kinds of problems. One is entitlement. In other words, you're the type of person that says, I should have everything. Well, quite frankly, you should have nothing. But I should have everything, and if I don't get it, I'm angry. That's one thing. There's also usually a lack of empathy, that you can't really think that other people, you don't feel for them, you only feel for yourself. And thirdly, starting to have an ideation of violence, and you're just fascinated with violence in one way or another. Weaponry, violent games, violent television, you're thinking about how cool that is. That's a real scary sign.
But of course, you didn't know this person. Let's talk right now to, we're going to go to Crandon, Wisconsin. It's a family representative and Pastor Bill Farr. Pastor, thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. I know you're very busy right now, and it's a tough time. You did know Peterson. Tell us a little bit about what he was like. The reports are that he was kind of an aggressive guy, but is that the kid you knew?
No. Tyler was an even-tempered boy, and our son is the same age. They went to school together and even did things together. So, you know, this was totally unexpected. Tyler was not prone to these kinds of mood swings in any way.
Pastor, I know everybody in town, almost everybody's being interviewed by all sorts of different newspapers and media outlets, and some of the schoolmates of his, especially when he was back in high school, they said that he wanted to be in the popular crowd, but he never quite made it into that popular clique, so to speak. Do you have any indication of that, that's what he wanted?
No, you know, Tyler wasn't a real popular kid, but I don't know that it was something that, you know, it necessarily bothered him that much. Certainly, he hung around with Jonathan, our son, and there were times that that they did things together, as I said, but you know, it wasn't like I didn't really get the sense that he was picked on or bullied or things like that, you know, necessarily.
Crandon is such a small town, and I know the families obviously are grieving, but also Tyler's family is grieving as well. And they've made they've tried to reach out to the community, at least initially, by saying, we don't know how to reach out. How are they dealing with things now?
It has actually overwhelmed the family. I got to talk with them last night, and they said that they were really uncertain what was going to happen, whether they would have to move from the community just because of the guilt and what happened.
Yeah.
But they said the community's response to them has been overwhelming. Food has been dropped off at their house. People have called, and so many positive comments to them. So I really feel that the community is embracing them.
Yeah. Pastor, a couple of questions. Did you ever see Tyler act out as far as his temper was concerned, lose his temper in front of you? And also, how do you explain what happened to your parishioners?
Well, you know, we never saw that kind of a mood swing in Tyler. We never had seen, in fact, when he got a job with the police force and the sheriff department, I felt that was a good job for him, that he would do well in it. And even the day before all of this, he talked with his police chief, his boss, and they talked about how he could do better and how he could be a better policeman. So, you know, there was nothing to indicate that kind of a mood swing. And so, you know, what we do as a community, as a church, and as a community is to just embrace one another and try to get through this the best we can. And there's not really going to be any understanding to this. It's just going to be a matter of us, you know, holding each other and supporting one another, encouraging one another.
Pat Brosman, do you have any final thoughts on this? Because again, this boy was in the police force.
My sense of it, Juliet, is that had he been a bus driver, an Indian chief, any other job, that his over-the-top behavior would still probably have been triggered by whatever stressors were involved in him being disrespected at the party, whatever was building up to it. And the fact that he was a police officer seems to be actually incidental, because he didn't even use his police weapon. He used an AR-15, which wasn't the weapon. So that didn't help to facilitate it. I think he just was a guy who had pathologies, who had problems, and coincidentally was a police officer. Could have been any other career.
Pat Brown, would you agree with that?
Absolutely agree with that. So it isn't anything that the police have done wrong in not figuring out that he had these problems. He could have been a pizza delivery guy and done the exact same thing. And I want to comment about what the pastor said about he's really, you know, he's a wonderful guy, he's sweet, he's a great, you know, the type of guy you want as a pastor. And this is what happens. A lot of us minimize behaviors. We just sort of accept them and say, well, he's a nice guy. I mean, he did a little strange things and he says these strange things, but you know, he's you know, we can't pick on everybody for their little bad sides.
At this point, though, Pat, in our society, should we, if we think somebody's acting oddly in our lives, should we tell the authorities?
Well, probably if you say somebody's acting just says something strange, it's really hard for the police to do anything. It's important for society to start with the children when they're young. That's when it starts. By the time they're 8 or 9 years old, they're already having major problems with their family and communities. Yeah. They're feeling like they're not succeeding in life, and they're angry about that.
A lot of times it's because of the parental relationship or lack thereof with the child. Those are the people that are supposed to be helping these kids.
Exactly, and a lot of times they minimize it as well, and then so does the school minimize it, and so do the friends minimize it, so we really have to pay a lot more attention.
We just want to say to Crandon, Wisconsin, I think you're lucky to have Pastor Farr there. He seems like a really compassionate man. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.